Good day, and welcome to another episode of In Our Community. I'm your host, Jim Ducey, and I'm here today with Phillip Domantay, the owner and operator of King Phillip Independent Living Facility in San Jose. We met Phillip on an earlier show where we talked about how independent living facilities work. Phillip was born and raised in the Republic of Philippines and graduated there with a degree in hotel and restaurant management. Since coming to the United States, Phillip's career led from food preparation to working as director of assisted living at a residential care facility for the elderly. After working for several years with a colleague at another group home in San Jose, in 2005, he had the opportunity to open his own facility, King Phillip Independent Living. So let's continue our conversation with Phillip Domantay about independent living facilities. Good morning, Phillip. It's good to see you again. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. Thank you.
Wow, it was a great show last time, and I'm looking forward to continuing the conversation. Last time we talked generally about how independent living facilities are different from other kinds of communal living facilities like group homes, board and care homes, assisted living facilities. We found out that all of your residents are referred from social service agencies, mental health facilities, or law enforcement. Residents there have some kind of mental health or behavioral challenge. We also learned about the living environment at King Phillip and how you help your residents developing social skills, job skills, and possibly moving out on their own. Today, I'd like to go back a step and talk about how you interact with the referring agencies, how they first come to you with the possible resident, and how they interact with the resident once they're in your care. So can you tell us a little about how the first interaction works with a social service agency?
So thank you, Jim. Social services, NAMI, local hospitals, some mental health facilities, they call us, especially when we were listed at one of the facilities with NAMI. NAMI is one of the biggest group for, it's a mental advocate.
And what is NAMI?
NAMI, sure, I definitely. So what they do is, this is a group of nonprofit organization where they advocate for individuals who have mental diagnosis. So they get the full support for these individuals in terms of, especially if you are new diagnosed with these diseases. So they are the one to help you start up. The resources, the medical support that you need. If you don't have a social worker right now, they are the one to help you place that. So they can call the local hospital or agencies that help you set up with a social worker. Also, benefits. If you don't have active benefit, they help you with Social Security or medical benefits. So everything is coming from one door to help you with that setup. Next, what's they look for housing. So from that, when they hit to that moment where I need the place to live, now all those places that referred by NAMI, NAMI also called me directly if you have opening or anything like that. So they're the one helping. Okay, I have a client next to me, so can they inquire about your place? So so that's only one source in there, and it spreads out to a lot of agencies in the area. So the social worker will call me and inquire about what are the services you provide. Tell me about your facility. And then during that inquiry process, we will meet the criteria, like what are you looking for, and here's what I have. So they will be able to determine, both will be determined if we are able to admit the client. So that's the initial process that we look at in terms of referral agencies when they call. So Next is the financial option. So what are we looking at? Are you a private pay, or is there a way that the insurance can cover it? So there are a lot of factors in there that we'll look at before we proceed with the next step. That's only the initial interview, initial process. Get to know the facility and get to know a little bit about the situation of the person. And then next we will schedule a day where um, they will come to the facility, because I always recommend that for a client to come here, because even though I'm excited, oh, I like it. Oh, yes, you're giving it 3 meals a day. Oh, I like the shared room because I'm making friends, right? Oh, I like the area when you talk, give me the address.
For sure.
But it's not enough, because mm, putting your eyes in there when you go to the facility, is this a really place for me? Because you will get to know your roommate, you will get to know the rest of the staff in there, you will interact with them. That's the important part of this process. It's because, yes, I met Jim or I met Mark, phenomenal individuals. I would love to move it there. So that I want to hear that from the client
So
himself.
now do you generally work with the same agencies so they know who you are? It's not like people come to you just cold and they don't know anything about King Philip.
It's actually both. So we have a lot from referral agencies, right? They call us. Some individuals, they hear the numbers, or because we have a website. When you go to Google it, you see independent living home in San Jose. We show up in there for good reason. We are the one that has a website that shows in there. That's the first question I have, because I need to know if my marketing tool is working, right? So how did you hear about us? You know, that kind of thing. Oh, I Google it. Oh, I got your number from one of the she said that she's your former resident or one of social worker. So they say a lot of things in there where they call you directly from either when they're released from the rehab, from the release from the hospital. We have a lot of, we even have walk-ins. Somebody just knocking at your door in the morning, like, oh, I heard somebody give me your address. I'm wondering if you have opening. You know, so that's a lot of ways that we hear from their inquiry from outside.
So
So
now when a resident comes to interview you, essentially they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them. Do they come with their social service um, representative or sponsor?
they do. So some of them they don't, but you know, after the first process, I that's a when we set up a second meeting, or when we go to the next step, which is you come to the facility, I always recommend that always come with your social worker or your power of attorney or conservator, whoever representing you,
Right.
because we want them to have that feeling also that my client, this is where he lives, and I know the setup of the house. So it's not only the client, it's because another thing is that, you know, if I want to know them, you know, it's not like over the phone, and then they will learn about what we do and with personal meet. And I want you to see the house itself, and you can share it to other colleagues in your office.
And
Hey, I visited King Phillip Independent Living. I
sure,
never like this, so I'm referring it to you, that kind of thing.
right. And also, you know, if they come with their sponsor, then, you know, they have somebody to talk about it with afterwards and bounce some ideas off. So that's really a good way to do things. So now what about uh, any law enforcement agency? So you do have people who have been in trouble with the law and they're being released and they have a parole officer, and how does that interaction work?
We do have, so how that works is that when the person is released and they're on probation, so they have the PO officer. So the PO officer will coordinate with this agency as well. Hey guys, do you have a place where I can have my client? She will be released tomorrow. So the agency will, hey, call this guy. So they will come either one of the agencies will call me or the PO himself. This is where we're placing the client, because the PO want to make sure that the address you're giving me is appropriate for my client, because it depends on the criminal history of that person. A good example, if that person needs to be registered, right? So we want to make sure that it's not close to school or to young ones in your area. So they will make that determination um, by just giving the address. You don't need to come here and inspect the place first, but once they know the address, they already know if it's appropriate for them. If it's appropriate, they will come here. Sometimes a PO doesn't need to come here because they will assign a case manager for that individuals, and then we start to connect. Once that person moved in, and then get the information about the PO, and then I'll put that in file where to let them know that your client moved into this address. So that's how we connect. And then from that time, any issue, anything, you know, I'm the first person they ask. You know, PO calls me and say, "How's he doing? You know, how's the policy in the house rules in there?" They say following it. So that kind of support that the individuals get from this PO officer, parole officer.
Right. So that's one of the things I did want to ask, what kind of support you do get from doctors and social service agencies and stuff. Do they tend to call you just to check in and see how things are going? Or is the conversation generally the other way if something just goes wrong? Do they tend to follow up with their clients and
They
try to
do.
see that everything is going well?
Correct. So, and I'm glad you asked that, Jim, because it's not like they just place the client here. They want to make sure that they made the right decision. So they will call me, and follow up, and I'll do the same thing too. If there's any issue, I make that phone call, or on Friday before they take a day off, they say, "Hey, Philip, I want to touch base with you before the end of the week. I'm off tomorrow, but I'm still be able to reach out. How's he doing? Tell me." So they're very supportive. They are one phone call away. Once you call them, they even pick up or they call you right away.
Mm-hmm.
So those are very supportive individuals, and I'm at this resident very lucky to have these individuals where they get support even 24/7. So that's only for the law enforcement or the PO. What about the case manager? The case manager take a day off as well. So some of them they are unable to reach on that phone that they gave us, which is their work cell phone, but there is a 24/7 crisis line. So you're not gonna left behind in there, because no matter what time, what day, there is always somebody who can help. If there's a crisis of this resident, there is a number that you can call. Mostly that we have called is like if there's an outburst behavior that we need to call the law enforcement, we'll call the 911 for 5150 criteria. So those are, no matter what time we feel secured and we feel supported, it's because these individuals are there with you all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's social. Even the doctor, the psychiatrist, they're typical 9 to 5. So, but if there's a problem, Philip, here's the number you can call. So if it's emergency, this is the number that you can call. So you feel like, yes, we can manage this. So no matter what happened over the weekend or during the night, we feel secure about these individuals. And another support that I learned last year is, we call it the mobile crisis response team. So you call if there's a outburst behavior, if this resident is totally out of control and not meeting they call it 5150 criteria, when the police officer come by to see if you're qualified. So what they do is that they take you somewhere for on hold for a short period of time. So there is the mobile crisis response team. They will come to the facility. There are like 3 or 4 of them, and what they do is they help you with the resolution. They ask questions, they do assessment. And they will also determine if this person needs to go for a treatment.
Mhm.
So it's no matter what happened, if the other resource did not work, or the other one like, oh, you're not sure, so let's get another support. Because these individuals, we understand that we're not just going to put the resident or the client right away to 5150 facility, you know or they call it EPS.
Mhm.
So we just don't want to send them there, because sometimes it's very tragic to them. They don't want to go there. So let's do something. Let's do a little assessment and getting support from mobile crisis team for you to be evaluated and to see what's going on. So, and a lot of them, you know, able to take care of this. They are able to calm down somebody who was very out of control, and they can determine what they really need, and they can give that support right away.
Right. When we talked last time, you were very interested in making sure that you can try to calm a situation down. And you work very well. You interact really well with all of your residents. You know them personally. You know what issues they have, what kind of things can set them off, and you try to keep the situation calm. But I'm sure there are situations that do just get out of hand, and that's when you have to end up calling in for support from the people that they know, other people that can help them. Right. So, do you have situations where things just can never be brought back to resolution, and the resident continues to violate the house rules, doesn't take medication, doesn't really take care of themselves, and you finally get to the point where you have to call the social worker and say, this just isn't going to work.
Right. There are a lot of situations like that where the resident is really not cooperative.
Mhm.
So a lot of them is like they will be taken to EPS, and a lot of them like not meeting the criteria, but the problem is not resolved. So let's say the after a long conversation, you'll be able to calm down. Later on, again, another issue coming up, and then, so it keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. So what do we do there is like, aside from we already made a phone call with the crisis team or the social worker, you we come up to the moment where we have to review the house rules again. Hey, just a reminder, just to let you know that, you know, from day one, if do you remember explaining this to you about our house rules? And a lot of them, oh yeah, I don't know that, I forgot about it. All right, and a lot of them, they don't want to lose their housing. This is a great opportunity for them because the agency
Right.
pays for them. Yeah,
Sure.
some time. So a lot of them like, oh, I'm ready for. I don't care if I'm homeless, right? So, but for us, we don't want, even though you are uh, uncooperative at that moment, as long as you are not violent, you are not hurting yourself or hurting other individuals,
Sure.
we're fine. We can still wait for the next day, correct? So, um, so that whole night, if you need to be there and monitor this individual to make sure he's not doing it, because he didn't meet 5150. The law enforcement already here, and he just stay overnight and let it go, you know. But it's not. We're not gonna end up in there. We have to monitor the individuals at the same time. They already understand the eviction process, that this is something that we can't do because we have to protect other individuals also. So that is a time when we hate to let them go, but at the same time, we have to. You did the right thing. It's because you try to protect other resident as well.
Sure.
So, and it's not we're gonna end up in there. So a part of the coordination with the social worker, um, we're gonna help them like, hey, you know what? Knowing the behavior, knowing the issue here is like because she's not taking medication. I have a list of places that I can recommend for this resident because this facility are licensed and they're able to manage the medication. So that's one thing that can resolve thing for this behavior.
Okay. So now
Medication.
on the positive side, you do try to encourage people, and some of the residents do want to learn new job skills. You told me some of them go back to school, try to improve and move on. You know, they recognize, you know, that they need development, and they move on. So from the positive side, you get good feedback from social workers on that point too.
That's correct. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Jim, that part where what is the successful part in the positive
Right.
way. So a lot of them happening in here because you as a staff or an administrator for this type of setting, you should be able to dig in what's going on with that client. It's not like only thing I know you violated eviction. You know, we have to come up with what is the missing piece in there. So we have to ask that question like, is there anything that makes you you know, what are we looking at? So start with a good conversation with that client. You know, all they need when they're upset, like all of us, if you're upset, you want to express something, but sometimes you don't feel like there's somebody there next to you that I can express my thoughts or my ideas or my problem. You feel like you're blowing up and your behavior change. So there should be somebody there to ask, like, you know, start with a good conversation, like what's going on. If that person likes to smoke, you know, that happened previously. That person, because he didn't smoke for a few days, cigarette, I'm talking about cigarettes, but that is a piece where he needs it. So, and I learned during that conversation that when he asked others here in the house, they said, no, do you have a piece of cigarette? I need cigarette in a nice way. He said, I asked him in a nice way. They said, they keep saying, no, I only need one.
Yeah.
Then to the next level, well, the person is getting upset. Now, if I evict that person because of that behavior, I don't know that is where it coming from. What's the root cause? So I need to dig for that one, because if that happened to another person, I know now what's going on. You know, so that is something that you can sit down for a few minutes. You know, I already know that this person needs that cigarette or they need smoke because the roommate keep asking anyway, right? So they are grab a piece of cigarette, one stick. Actually, I have some stack of cigarette where I can share. I don't smoke at all, but it's here in the office because I can offer it to them. It's not like I'm advocating their wrong habit.
It seems like such a simple thing, and yet it has such a big consequence. So in just the last minute or so, I'd just like to wrap up what we talked about today. I know that you're really encouraging to your residents. You don't feel like, you know, they're just an imposition to you or just a way to make a living. Their growth, their benefit is very important to you. And I've seen that in the way that you deal with people. So the next interview, rather than just talking about how you work with the outside agencies, we're going to talk about how you work with the residents as they live in your home. So do you have anything more that you'd like to say to the viewers about just how the whole environment works with the social service agencies and the residents, how all of that interaction works?
Mhm. Thank you, Jim. When they move into this facility, it's our goal is to them feel like this is a right place for them, and I would like to have them feel that I want to have them feeling like this is my home, this is where I'm going to live. So, and make friends, or this is my family now, that kind of thing. So we have to help them meet that level where they will connect more with their roommates or make new friends with them, and even the staff, you know. So it is very important for us because that is the successful piece for us if we are doing a good job in terms of keeping them safe and feel like this is your new home. So we have to keep that moment. Number one, like I mentioned before, the medication is very important. So even though we don't manage their medication, we we can just remind them. We don't touch the medication. We don't store it. We don't put it in the mouth or in the hands. So I would say, Mark, don't forget your meds before you go to sleep. That's it. Just a quick conversation. And a lot of them, they'll come back to you and say, "Oh, I took my meds. Thank you for reminding me." Right? So that is when you turn around. Like I feel like, thank you. That now I feel good for the night as well because somebody will have a good sleep.
Sure. That
So
personal connection is really an important thing, again, to make it feel like it's a home.
it is. And then it's not like also we end up the night in there. Ask them, guys, before you guys know what's going on in the news today. Walk in sometime. If they're watching TV,
Mm-hmm.
even though, just a quick conversation. What's in the news, guys? Anything I need to know that I miss? And then they start telling you. So the connection is there. They are very motivated to tell you what they understood from the TV because that's another piece for you also to understand. Like they're not just sitting there, but they understand what's coming up in there, and that understanding can duplicate or mirror it, and then they will share it to me when you ask that question, and that piece. Oh, this person is able to capture that information, and I'm so glad that is happening. For me, if you have that moment, it's like she's doing a having a good time mentally. It's not some individuals when you ask that question, oh, what's in the news today? I don't know. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
that is the time that maybe that we need to. We're not a psychiatrist, we're not a doctor to dig with that part. With at least offer a good conversation. Maybe that person is just sitting there because it couldn't sleep. You had to go in the living room, watch TV, at least something that I can hear.
Sure.
But this is the time for you to determine what are the other things that you are going to enjoy most, right?
So thanks very much, Philip, for joining us in our community. I'm your host, Jim Ducey. We'll talk with Philip again next week, and we'll talk about how the interaction works inside the home with the residents. Thanks very much, Philip, and
Thank
we'll
you,
talk to
Jen.
you again.
Bye.
Bye.